The piano has been around for hundreds of years. There have been many different kinds of keyboard instruments throughout time. One of the earliest kind of pianos was the dulcimer, which was created in Europe during the 14th century. The dulcimer was a very shallow closed box that had wires stretched over it. It was struck with two hammers. After the dulcimer, there were many other keyboard instruments invented in the 14th century. Among those include the clavichord, spinet, and the gravicembalo. All these led to the well-known early keyboard, the harpsichord, in the 15th century. The harpsichord was a very important instrument in groups, but one problem that occurred with the harpsichord was that it could only play one dynamic. It didn't have the ability to play loud and soft. So a harpsichord maker named Bartolomeo Cristofori designed the gravicembalo col piano e forte in the early 18th century. MetMuseum.org describes how he came to invent the piano. Over the years, the gravicembalo col piano e forte was shortened to the pianoforte, and after that, shortened to piano as we know it today. Now there are lots of different kinds of pianos and lots of manufacturers of pianos. But in this speech, I am going to go through the process of making a grand piano. Now, there are many different kinds of grand pianos as well, but in this speech I'm going to explain how Mason and Hamlin grand pianos are made. So let's get started. Like most building processes, the very first step in making the piano is to create the rim or outline. I am taking the majority of my information from an episode of How It's Made on the Science Channel. For a grand piano, it takes approximately 5 to 8 long slabs of hard rock maple wood that are soaked in glue and put together. While the glue is still wet, they mold the wood so that it creates the bend that grand pianos have. Next, they move the braces into a very warm and arid place for them to dry for at least 30 days. After the 30 days are up and the pieces of molded wood are completely dry, they cut pieces of wood and glue inside the rim to create a brace for the soundboard to sit on. After gluing the pieces into the outline of the piano, they place a tension resonator on top of the brace. The tension resonator helps support all of the stress that is on the piano from the weight of the soundboard and plate. Now we will move on to the next important step in creating a grand piano. The soundboard is one of the most important parts of the piano. When the keys are hit, the sound that travels on the bridges, which we will talk about later, are amplified using the soundboard. The soundboard is made of spruce wood and covers the whole base of the back of the piano. The next step in the piano making process are installing the bridges. There are two bridges, the treble and the bass. The bridges are installed so that the strings of the piano can straddle the soundboard, therefore amplifying the sound that comes out. A precision cutter cuts grooves into struts that are placed onto the soundboard. The middle of the struts are thick, and the grooves create a gradual thinning towards the end. This allows the soundboard to resonate freely while being played. A cast iron plate is then hoisted onto the soundboard and bridge. This is one of the most important steps in the process, because if it is not perfectly aligned with the soundboard, the piano cannot function properly. The plate has lots of holes and openings so that later, strings can be attached to the bridges. Then, where the strings are going to be placed, they hand chisel notches that 3 strings can fit in. This way, when the strings are hit, they can vibrate and resonate better. The next step is standing the piano on its side while a spinning cutter shapes the arms of the piano. The cutter creates all the detail that you see on the arms of the piano. After all this, the base of the piano is complete. Now they take a vertical stroke sander and smooth out all of the wood on the piano. They take a polyester paint and cover the outside of the piano. After that's dry, they buff on a mirror glazed cream, which gives it that reflective shine. Now it's time to give the piano sound. The pin block is placed in front of the piano. The purpose of the pin block is to hold all of the stress that is created from the strings of the piano. Over 45,000 pounds of tension are transferred from the strings to the iron plate. Next, holes are drilled into the pin block through the iron plate. Tuning pins are then inserted into the newly drilled holes in the pin block. Steel wires are twisted into a loop and attached onto a hitch pin on the back side of both the bass and treble bridges. They are aligned through the guideposts on the bridges so that they stay together. At the opposite end of the soundboard, the wire is threaded through another guidepost. Then the wires are threaded through the plate area and are hand cut to the length that they need to be. The wires are then wrapped around the tuning pins and the pins are tapped into the holes in the pin block. The pins are then driven into the pin block using a pneumatic hammer. The weight of only one of the strings can bear over 425 pounds of tension. Next, felt blocks called dampers are installed above the strings so that they stop the string from vibrating when played. Bends are put in the damper wires so that they line up parallel together. Next, the keyboard frame is installed. They check underneath the frame and smooth out all the gaps. This will stop from putting any damage on the keyboard frame. If it isn't even, when the keys are played loudly, it will cause pressure on the keyboard frame and cause it to not function properly. Piano keys are then pressed into steel guide pins. An air cylinder pushes the back check into steel guide pins. The purpose of the back check is used to catch the piano key hammer after it strikes the string. The next step in the keyframe is to make the hammers. Each hammer has a felt top that is attached to a piece of hornbeam wood. Hornbeam wood is used because of its strength and its ability to stand up to hard blows. Next, the hammer needs to be squared up. A wood block is pushed against each hammer so that they are parallel together. So that there is no damage to the back check, the tail of each hammer is sanded smooth. Now the hammers are attached to the keyboard frame. Weights are placed on each key to test how much effort it takes for the key to move the hammer. This is why each piano differs in how much force it takes to play a note. This process of testing each key is called weighing it off. After marking and drilling holes in each key, the holes are filled with pieces of lead. The lead is then pressed in so it fills the space of the hole. The purpose of the lead in the keys is to counterbalance the weight of the hammers while playing the piano. For the last step, a piano technician checks each hammer on each key to make sure the process is smooth and effortless. He also tests the pedals that are at the bottom of the piano. On pianocareer.com, they explain what each pedal is and how it is used. The first pedal is the una corda pedal, or soft pedal. This pedal allows, The second pedal is the sostenuto pedal. This pedal allows one note to be sustained while others are being played. The final pedal is the sustaining pedal. This pedal holds the dampers down so that each note can be held out. After everything is checked, the pianos are ready to be distributed. So now that the piano making process is complete, let's recap the steps. First, the base of the piano is created. Next, the soundboard and bridges are installed so the strings have something to resonate off of. Next is the iron plate, where the pin block holds the tuning pins for the strings. After that, the keyframe is installed and the keys and hammers are set up. This diagram of the grand piano is a good visual aid to refer to when talking about the components of a grand piano. You can pass that around and look at it. The final step is checking to make sure the hammer and key work properly and are striking the strings at precisely the right time. After finding out how much work goes into making a grand piano, you're probably wondering how much one of these costs. Well, a Mason and Hamlin Grand can run anywhere from $15,000 to $70,000. So whether you're just tickling the ivories or performing a timeless piece at a recital, don't forget to think about all the hands that went into creating one of the most, in my opinion, beautifully crafted and detailed instruments of all time. Thank you.